All right, so this is Todd Atkins with Derek Galanis. We're back for Deke's Dojo episode 2, UFC 285 post show. Derek had some strong opinions going into the main event. So let's just start with the main event. Tell me what some of your thoughts are afterward.
Well, Todd, obviously I'm bamboozled, right? I really thought that Jones was going to have difficulty fighting at heavyweight. And more, just as importantly, I thought God, would train his wrestling to make it not look like, I mean, he looks like me in jujitsu class against a bigger guy. I mean, it just was really, really dominant. I don't know if I can call it conclusive. I've got to see the fight against Stipe. But yeah, I've got a lot of egg on my face. A lot of my listeners are upset about my opinion beforehand. But look, man, I had all my ducks in a row. I've been in a fight game my whole life, and I've watched Ronda Rousey fall. I watched Mike Tyson fall. If there was a time that was ripe for someone to fall, I thought it was now for Jones. And I've gone over and I've talked about all those reasons on the other shows with you. So I was wrong, is all I can say. I think again, John Jones finds ways to win. And, I think in that also, I don't think Cyril Gahn seriously put into his wrestling. If he did, he should be embarrassed. But yeah, I was wrong. I mean, what can I say? There's egg all over my face, and people are calling me a casual for the first time in my life. So what can I do?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, your reasoning, the things that you have brought up, they were valid points. Is he off of steroids, having a 3-year layoff, fighting for the first time without, in a long time without juice. He didn't look good in his last 2 fights. Those are all valid points. Those are all true. Um, but yeah, and I think Gon, maybe not the wrestling part, but I think it's just that he was how can I put it? He was not aware of the danger of getting caught in the guillotine. He left his head open. He didn't try to fight the hands or anything. It looked like he was probably not all that well versed, in jujitsu. He just wasn't ready for those situations. He overextended a little bit on his punch too, which allowed him to get taken down. So, yeah, it all happened so quick. That does happen in fighting, though. I mean, there's a lot of fight. Even the one with Valentina, I don't think anyone expected that to happen. It happened that fast, and that's what MMA is. Something can a fight can change on a dime. It may not go that way, 10 other times, but last night that's how it went.
Yeah, man. I mean, Valentina, the thing with her, I think, is, the division is finally catching up to her, right? A couple of years ago, I wouldn't have expected Grasso to beat her. But what's happening is Valentina was able to do a lot of things, and she even tried it once last night. She keeps doing head throws. And by the way, I used to be a head throw master in wrestling when I was a kid in high school. But guess what? Those things go away. You get away from junior college, head throw doesn't really work anymore in wrestling. And it certainly isn't advisable in MMA because people can take your back. And now that's not what happened with Valentina. I think it was a back kick, but that's the same thing. If you're tired and you're slow and your spin is going to be seen, you're going to get taken. And that's exactly what Grasso did. I mean, kudos to her. She advanced her game, right? I remember when she was almost a pure boxer. No kudos to Cyril Gahn because really he didn't look to me like he advanced his game at all. I don't give him that excuse. There was no fatigue. If you get caught cold, you get caught cold. But to get rustled down like that when the fight's going on, you have a training camp for it. I would imagine you should be wary of John Jones's guillotine. I mean, remember Lyoto Machida. So yeah, I'm upset with Gahn, happy with Grasso, and still wiping egg off my face.
Yeah, I mean, I think Valentina looked like she was well on her way to winning a decision pretty handily when that happened. But like I said before, this is just how MMA is. Like the thing with Jones, that fight may have not gone that fast for Jones 10 other times, but last night it did.
Yeah, I mean, look, how do I say this? It would have been really fun to see Jones and Gahn bang it out on the feet. I mean, we just had that with Gahn against Tuivasa, right? And it was a really fun fight because they're both deadly guys. Now, I don't think John Jones is going to be the type of striker at heavyweight that he was at light heavyweight, but I'm going to be wary about offering my opinions, after what happened. So, it would have been really fun to see Gane and Jones exchange, but that wouldn't have been in Jones's best interest, so to speak. So we didn't get to see it. And, it is what it is. And the fight's over, and John's the new champion. I can't wait for the Stipe fight, man. But even then, it makes me wonder, like, is this all like, is the world just aligning before John Jones? Like, I can tell you this, man. I mean, when he beat Chael Sonnen, remember his toe came off, his big toe. And if Chael had been able to gut out that round, which I have no doubt he could if he knew what happened, Chael would have won that fight. With Vitor Belfort, he had that armbar. John Jones admitted, like, he was either going to break my arm or he was going to let go. Like, Vitor had that fight, but it seems like John Jones is able to pull victory out of anywhere every single time. And even his close decisions where we malign him, like with Gustafsson and Reyes, he doesn't get down on himself and cower. He keeps pressing to the point where certain judges give him the score. So the man knows how to win, as they say. And that's the story of last night.
Now, I know you mentioned Stipe, but we have a pretty big fight at heavyweight in April, which is Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades. Do you think the winner of that could emerge as maybe even be a better challenger than Stipe, given that he's, already 40 years old? And what do you think?
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Todd, as far as the physicality goes. But the reality is fighting's a business, right? And Stipe is now, they say it, I don't know if it's true, but they say Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. And even John Jones says it, because I'm sure the UFC told him to say it. Like, this is how we build fights, right? The greatest light heavyweight against the greatest heavyweight. And then they're going to crown John the GOAT of all time when he beats Stipe. For me, man, it's just kind of interesting how it all went down and what happened. Yeah, I'm still shaking my head at John Jones, and I don't know. I don't want to call it luck because the man is extremely talented, but everything seems to fall his way in the end.
But what I mean is, if Pavlovich or Blades, for that matter, are impressive in the win, do you think they might go with one of those guys over Stipe or no?
No, it's a business, man. And because it's a business, they got to make the fights. They're going to make money. And neither of those guys beating John Jones is in the interest of the UFC. Whether Stipe wins or Jones wins, they can spin it pretty good. But it's kind of like Jamal Hill, who's at light heavyweight now. That didn't really do the UFC any good. Now, Jamal Hill reminds me of a young John Jones. If these guys come in and stamp their name and start running through the names of the day, well, God bless them. Then they have their spot. But as for right now, I think UFC is really going to lean towards Stipe and Jones if they can.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I kind of wish they could move Pavlovich and Blades to that card. If they, like, let's say Stipe and Jones fight in July, maybe they could be the co-main. That would be pretty cool. But they already have that fight booked for an April fight night show. So
yeah, it's a good idea, but they have so many fighters and so many fights now, right? I mean, the problems that they had before are not problems anymore. Now they got new problems.
yeah, I'd really like to see that. You could have like a kind of like a 4-man tournament sort of, and go that route with it. Where you have Jones and Stipe, Blades and Pavlovich. I think that would be a good.
I think that's effectively what's going to happen anyway, right? A 4-man tournament that's not official. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. It'll be fun, man. I mean, I just still sit here. I'm still in shock about last night, man.
Now, maybe talk a little bit more about Valentina and Grasso. I know we kind of touched on it, but just give me your thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, I mean, Valentina shows a lot of the same excellence that made her so exciting, but it's a little bit like Anderson Silva, right? The division is catching up. They're fighting better athletes, and people have been training longer now. I remember when I first saw Grasso, she looked very boxing like. You know what I mean? Now, wow, give the girl a second, with that spinning back kick that Valentina missed, takes it back and wins the world title. So I think the problem for Valentina, it's like I said with the head throw, is the division is catching up to her. And we saw that with Talia Santos. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think Santos beat Valentina. I thought it was very clear, but you don't take a title from the greatest women's fighter ever, possibly, like that. They're going to keep him on top. So it's going to be interesting. Now, I think the UFC probably booked Grasso because having another Mexican champion like that is good for business. It's a big fight culture down there. Brandon Moreno was in the crowd, who's one of their other Mexican champions. So yeah, I mean it's good fight business. Who knows? Maybe UFC will be free in Mexico too, like the boxing is down there.
Now, the next fight we're going to get into, I felt was the best fight, obviously, of the main card, which was Neil and Rachmanov. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so gosh, what sniper press? I'm stealing the line from the announcer, but both those guys were just bombing, right? And really accurate and really fun. I think what the difference was is Neil's a little more shop worn, right? He was very clearly a little bit more out of shape, right? He missed weight. You saw the belly on him, the announcers pointed out. But the Kazakh fighter is brand new, right? He doesn't know defeat. So that's what edged it. But we also saw that the Kazakh can be hit because Neil hit him a lot. It was an absolutely exciting fight, man. I love that kind of fight. But look, the right guy won because the Kazakh has a chance to go on and make a career soon. Neil is sort of falling down the contender ranks, but that's the breaks of fighting, man. There's nothing fair about it. It just is what it is. But wow, what a fight! Awesome.
Do you think they're going to give Rachmanov a title shot in his next fight, or do you think they might want to give him one more fight so the fans can see him again?
Yeah, I mean, so the problem is, right, Todd, we know that title is tied up, right? Our next UFC card is going to be Edwards versus Usman, and a lot depends on how that ends, right? If it ends where Usman decimates Edwards, maybe. If it doesn't, I just don't know. Although I will tell you, I think that Kazakh versus Edwards would be a great strikers matchup. That'd be a lot of fun. Not that Kazakh can't grapple too. I think he's finished all his fights like 8 by submission and the rest by knockout. I mean, just an awesome fighter, man. I'd like to see him get the title shot, but again, I'm not in charge.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how many guys are coming from, like I said, the surrounding areas of Russia that are, just look like really outstanding fighters. You got to fight in the future here with Fiziev and Gaethje. Maybe if Fiziev wins, he's gonna vault up too. So yeah, it's just all kinds of guys that are, and and the finish he had was pretty unique too. I saw Henry Gracie talking about that, where he hadn't really seen it done that way. He kind of showed what he did, but it shows those guys have obviously been working on stuff for a long time, but they also have their own innovations to certain techniques.
Yeah, that bar arm across the throat. I teach that as self-defense, in Krav Maga classes, Todd. Like I hadn't seen that used in the UFC. It looked more like a bar arm than a carotid. And then he saddled the leg over Neil's leg as well to complete the pressure. It was very impressive, man. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So let's talk old school boxing in the 80s. There was a time when people thought, and this was the delusion of the sport because of Don King, that, to be a top contender in the heavyweight division, you need to be African American. Well, we all know now that's absolutely ludicrous. And I think MMA is also finding that out as well. Like, whereas we had Chuck Liddell and all these local heroes for a while, we're starting to see the world open up. And just like it did in boxing, those Eastern European countries are making a very, very large imprint. Very tough people, very manly culture. I lived there for 2.5 years, as you know. So yeah, I mean, they're all really rugged guys, man. And I love that invasion.
Now, the next fight was one that I thought was pretty interesting going in, which was Gamrot and Jalen Turner. A lot of people were talking about Jalen Turner and his height and things like that. But really, Gamrot, the way he wrestles, with a lot of low singles and stuff that he likes to do, it's kind of perfect for him. I think he showed a lot of what can I say? Kind of like he I think his experience, from being in KSW and being a champion there, I think his experience showed, because I think a lot of people thought Turner was gonna beat him because he was kind of on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, look, so KSW, the Polish promotion, is the same thing we just talked about. You had a bunch of rugged guys over there. So his, whatever you want to call it, his minor league level, I'm sure wasn't very minor league. So Gamrot is an extremely tough guy, and I love his wrestling. That having been said, Jalen Turner did a great job too. Now, Todd, I didn't score the fight. And to score, I really have to pay attention and focus on that, but then I lose the fun. But I really couldn't pick a winner in that fight. And if I remember correctly, was it maybe not, but was it split?
Yeah, they had to split, but I thought Gamrot won the fight, pretty convincingly, in my opinion. He was able to get takedowns, 4 or 5 times in the fight and control the ground for a lot of it. I didn't think the fight was that close.
Yeah, well, I mean, he definitely had the top control, but I mean, Jalen Turner pieced him up a little bit on the feet too, which was cool to see. Not that Gamrot didn't land his own punches as well. The fight was a fun fight, man. I enjoyed it. I mean, with Jalen Turner, you know what it is. It's this abnormal height for a 155-pounder, right? And that's sort of his game, and we all have to play our game. But I thought it was a really good fight, man. At the end of it, I wasn't convinced Gamrot Ramba won, but that right, like I said, I wasn't scoring. You're probably right. I defer to you.
Now, the first fight, what's interesting about Nickel and Pickett is Pickett's kind of protesting now. And I saw that during the fight. I saw that he was talking to the ref. I thought maybe he was hurt, like he had maybe popped a rib or something, because you could see he was trying to communicate something to the ref, not Nickel. He was kind of looking off this way. And when they showed the replay, it clearly showed that Bo Nickel kneed him in the groin before he took him down, And so Pickett's kind of protesting the result because of that.
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed about that fight was, Bo Nickel came out and he threw a high tie kick. It reminded me very much of Ken Shamrock when he fought Rich Franklin. These guys try to prove like, hey, I can do this. Well, no, you can't. Don't do it. Stick to what you know. Nickel fell on the ground just like Shamrock did. The difference was Shamrock was old. He couldn't get up before Rich Franklin pounced on him. Bo Nickel actually got up, and then he spent some time wrestling, which is good. As far as the foul goes, man, that's the breaks. The fight games like that. I can tell you as a referee myself, and I've reffed a lot of smokers, I have a hard time seeing groin shots. I really do. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what blinds my vision to it. So, I'm sympathetic to it. Is it fair? No, but there's nothing about life that's fair, man.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a tough way to, he right after the knee, he took him down like basically immediately. So it was a factor. So I can see where Pickett's coming from. And yeah, it is tough because the ref didn't see it, so it's hard for them to, kind of make it a no contest or whatever. The ref didn't see it, the fight went on. I
Look,
mean, it'd be hard to recover down there after you but you're right. I mean, those are the breaks. What are some of your thoughts, and now that the event's over, besides John Jones, what else kind of sticks in your mind?
well, yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest thing that happened was Grasso taking the title from Shevchenko. That's the end of an era for her. I hope she doesn't hang on too long, because I can very much see that her style now is adaptable. Like the girls are at her level. So if she continues, she'll lose, I'm sure, at some point. And I guess all fighters do, but I have her in my mind like a female Anderson Silva, and I would hate to see her stick around as long as he did and take those big losses like he did to Cannonier and Uriah, what was it, Grant? Yeah, and all those guys. So yeah, hopefully she retires. I hope Grasso has a long reign. I mean, there's a lot of tough girls now. Grasso's pretty short for Santos, so we'll see how that goes. What else was there? Bo Nickel, listen, man, the guy's only had 3 fights right now, 4. We got to see the future for him. We don't know where he is. I mean, a lot of times people get ascribed things they can't do yet. His wrestling maybe beyond elite level, but I don't know what the rest is. And I didn't get a real sense of it last night. I mean, listen, I know the head and arm, the triangle choke better than he does. And that's very scary because I've always admitted to everybody my jujitsu is lousy. And you saw what he did with that triangle arm choke. Like he wasn't finishing it the way he should have. Otherwise, he'd have gotten the guy out of there earlier. So, Nickel's got a lot to learn still, right? He's still growing in the sport. But Todd, I've often said this, the hardest guys to train are guys that hit really hard because they think, well, why am I going to listen to you? What do you know? I hit you and you fall down. I hit anyone, they fall down. Well, Nichols, the grappler version of that, I'm sure, right? Like, why do I need to listen to you? Look what I can do. I'll put anyone on their back. Yeah, well, you might be able to, but when you get there, are you doing the right things to finish them? And that is an integral part of MMA. That's what Grasso did last night to Shevchenko. Give me 1 second and I will finish you. So my fear for Nickel right now is that he's very green, but they know how to develop people. If he's not with the right people now, they'll put him with the right people. That's what all those performance centers are about. So I'm sure he'll advance and we'll see how it does. Wrestling's much different than fighting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest surprise of the night. Not that Grasso won, but I thought, okay, if Grasso takes her back, which he did, that Shevchenko would be able to defend the position. But she got finished very quickly once she got her back taken. It was, that was kind of shocking to me because Shevchenko, this is the greatest female fighter, her or Amanda, one or the other. But it was just crazy that she got finished that quickly. It wasn't like she was hurt, or anything like that.
So yeah, Todd, spin kicks, and you're talking to a spin kicker, right? My background originally is Tung Sudo, and the scrapback guys used to get really mad because I would back kick them, and I'd hit it and I'd land it hard, and they get mad. Well, too bad for them. I mean, the problem with spin kicks is this: if you're exhausted when you throw them, they're slow and people see it coming. And she's throwing a spin back kick in the third round. Clearly, Grasso read it. She'd already thrown a couple spin hook kicks. And you don't want to give your opponent that kind of knowledge. I mean, I did the same thing I fought this guy named Pete Dickerson once in Tijuana, then in Whittier. And he knew I was a spin kicker. I was a karate guy when I took that fight. And so I spun on him in Whittier after I'd fought him in Tijuana already. He knew it was coming and he nailed me just like Grasso nailed Shevchenko. So, those spin techniques are really nice, but they've got to be applied sparingly. And, when you can land it. Unfortunately, looked to me like Shevchenko was tired, whether she knew it or not, because she was a bit slower with that kick.
Now, Derek, where can people find you on your different platforms?
Yeah, so guys, if you want to listen about MMA and combat sports, boxing, it's at Derek Galanis on TikTok. If you want to listen to crime and mafia stuff, it's at Derek Meyer Galanis on TikTok. If you like the fusion of both, follow me on Instagram at Derek Galanis. Both my books, the one on crime, Greed and Fear of the Galanis Crime Family, and the one in the fight game, Warrior of the Light, can be had on Amazon. So, yeah.
Yeah, Derek, it was interesting. I know you've been having to take a lot of flack now that the result didn't come and you kind of had a pretty strong opinion. But I always appreciate you taking time to break down some of these fights and look forward to doing it again soon.
Definitely, man. Thank you.
Take care.